Joining me now here in the studio, Hugo Lowell, political investigations reporter with The Guardian. He, of course, has been covering this from the courtroom from the very beginning. Also with me, Joyce Vance, former federal prosecutor, law professor at University of Alabama, and co-host of the hashtag Sisters-in-Law podcast and MSNBC legal analyst. Welcome, both of you, my friends. Hugo, you were in court this week. How would you describe the showdown? How did Trump react to it?
It was very tense, and we finally got to it after a couple of days of Michael Cohen being on the stand. And I think two big things kind of came out towards the end so far of Michael Cohen's cross-examination. One is that Todd Blanche, Trump's lawyer, finally attacked the core charge against Trump that the prosecution is bringing out. It's a falsification of business records. And he put to Michael Cohen and said, you know, there was a legal contract, right? There was a settlement agreement to buy the rights to Stormy Daniels' story, and Michael Cohen affirmed, yes, you know, there was a legal agreement. Hush money is not illegal. So I think that was very important. Number two, he really attacked Michael Cohen's credibility. He basically made the case that over the years, Michael Cohen has lied, and it has lied whenever it has suited him. Whenever he needs something, he lies. For instance, he lied allegedly before Judge Pauly, who presided in his 2018 tax evasion and false statements case. You know, Todd Blanche said to Michael Cohen, you know, you said you weren't being cornered into taking a guilty plea, but now you're saying that you felt pressured and you only had 48 hours to plead and you wanted to protect your wife. And he admitted to that on the stand. And so the portrait that is emerging is that Michael Cohen lies with abandon, lies with ease. And Todd Blanche this week was saying, well, it's all in a motivation to get whatever you want. And in this case, is to see Trump in jail.
Yeah, but let me just say, I mean, there's the timing of those lies. He had not served time in jail with those lies that he previously presented, right? I mean, is that at all something that has made its way diffused through the courtroom and the testimony?
No, and it's because it kind of got lost in the theatrics. You know, Todd Blanche at some point, you know, at one point accused Michael Cohen of directly lying, and he raised his finger and he wagged his finger and said, you can admit that you lied. And Michael Cohen stuck to his story and said, no, I'm not lying, and this is the truth.
Okay, Joyce, you wrote, in fact, that Blanche created confusion by skipping around the timeline of the events, and that added that chaos because it's creating doubt. But Blanche struggled to land a real gotcha moment during cross-examination Tuesday. So how much of his yelling Thursday might have been a performance for, oh, let's just call it an audience of one?
So look, Todd Blanche is a lawyer's lawyer, a former federal prosecutor. He understands that his reputation hinges on a credible performance here. And he's been widely panned, Alex, by people who say he hasn't landed significant punches. Hugo's making this really interesting point about the evidence and how things look. And the reality is that the lawyers don't get to argue the evidence to the jury while they're examining or cross-examining witnesses. That'll all happen in closing statements. And that's when we'll really find if any of these things that Blanche has tried, from creating, you know, this appearance of chaos, hoping that one or more jurors will be confused and perhaps refuse to find guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, to these sort of specific instances where he's questioned credibility of Michael Cohen and other pieces of the government's case. We'll find out when we hear the closing arguments whether any of that is really going to have the potential to land with one or more jurors.
Josh, my director, is going to put up this document. We want to look at it. It is People's Exhibit 35. It was presented Monday. It appears to show Trump Org's plan to reimburse Cohen for the $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels. How critical, Hugo, was this and the other documents that were presented to the jury during the trial?
Well, this is the key document.
Yeah.
This is the key document. Yeah. I mean, on this document, you see the handwriting of Alan Weisselberg, the ex-Trump Organization's chief financial officer, where it says we're grossing it up, we're doubling the payment back to Michael Cohen for tax purposes. The problem that Todd Blanche has is, despite, you know, trying to get Michael Cohen to say, yeah, this was all legal, this was illegal work, the First Republic Bank statement, which is what that document is, it lays out the entire repayment scheme. And it lays out how Alan Weisselberg, in his own handwriting, wrote it out. And for the jury to believe that Alan Weisselberg and Michael Cohen concocted was essentially, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars in repayment, and for Trump to not know about it just seems ludicrous. And at the end of the day, if you apply common sense and you look at this statement and you have multiple witnesses corroborating, yes, this is Alan Weisselberg's handwriting, Everyone knew that this was how the repayment was going to go. We're going to come up with a sham cover story that this is legal expenses. And I think that's the problem that Trump's defense team faces.
So, Joyce, overall, give me your sense of Cohen's evidence. Has he established a nexus between Trump and the alleged criminal activity?
Right. If the jury accepts Cohen's testimony, he absolutely has. He puts Trump in the center of things, and he makes it clear that he never did anything without calling the boss for approval. That's why there are these repeated phone calls. This is why it was so important for prosecutors to, in essence, corroborate Cohen before he ever took the witness stand. They used witnesses from early on in the trial who would say the same things that Michael Cohen would say, but none of them goes as far as he does in eliciting these conversations that are directly with Donald Trump. So that's the leap of faith that prosecutors will ask the jurors to take to rely on Cohen's testimony.
Well, and then there is Cohen's surreptitious recording of Donald Trump. What kind of a role, Hugo, is that expected to play?
I mean, it kind of came up on the sidelines. This was Michael Cohen recording Trump saying, yes, we're going to move forward with the repayment to David Pecker, actually. And he says he made that recording in order to reassure David Pecker that the reimbursement to him was coming. So it's not directly on the Stormy Daniels payment, but I think it kind of shows in a circumstantial way that Trump was being kept abreast of all of the developments.
Like, why would he know about that and not Stormy Daniels?
Right. You know about the McDougal thing.
Right.
You know about David Pecker being reimbursed, and yet you don't know that Michael Cohen is going to pay back this money and legal expenses. It doesn't track.
Joyce, feel free to state the obvious here, but what are the challenges for Trump if he insists on testifying?
Right. There are so many of them, Alex. For one thing, the first challenge will be for him to stick to the truth, right? That's always been a big challenge for him under oath. He could subject himself to perjury or push the jury over the edge to convicting him. But also there's this entire demeanor issue. This is a judge who's shown ability to have great control of his courtroom. If Trump makes the sort of bombastic statement he's prone to on the stand, this is a judge who will shut him down. Nothing good happens for this defendant if he takes the witness stand, but ultimately it is the client's call. And if his lawyers are unable to persuade him to stay off, he can testify. But we don't really see any great love for I think on Trump's part, for the idea of getting on the witness stand, subjecting himself to cross-examination. The judges already said prosecutors are entitled to use a lot of his prior bad acts and potential crimes to cross-examine him. I don't think that this is a defendant with a lot of appetite to testify.
Yeah, so in all likelihood, it's just very much performative on Trump's part. When do you think the trial's going to wrap, Hugo? And is there any advantage to doing so, getting it to the jury before a long holiday weekend?
Yeah, look, let's see if Trump testifies. I think that's going to be the key in this case. If Trump doesn't testify, which is what we're expecting, then what will happen Monday is we will get the remainder of Michael Cohen's cross-examination and redirect. The balance of that time on Monday is probably going to be an FEC, a federal elections expert, if Trump puts that expert on. And then we will probably get the jury instructions. That's what Judge Merchan suggested at the close of business last week. And we are also on Tuesday probably going to get the summations in that case.
Closing arguments.
And so if we get the summations Tuesday, the jury could have the case by then. If not, they'll have it Thursday, and we'll see how long it takes to deliberate.
Okay, well, more to come, Hugo and Joyce. I hope we have a date next weekend again. Thank you both so much.